people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
De la noche, Stephanie Piñeiro.
That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. It's official. Unbeaten up-and-comer of Australia, Skye Nicholson is going to be returning to action opposite the ring, Peru's own Linda Lecca. Linda Lecca, you might be familiar with that name. That's the same Linda Lecca that just dropped a lopsided decision to Raven Chapman.
She's set to go down April 22nd on the undercard of Cordina versus Rakhimov for what is the IBF title, same day as Ryan Garcia versus Gervonta Davis. Just so happens to be the same day as Alen Babic versus Lukas Rozansky. That's going to be a busy weekend.
Busy indeed. How to interpret this matchup for Skye? Well, Skye's only got 6 professional fights and only a little over a year in the pro game as a professional boxer. Thus, these are developmental fights that she's fighting in. And a fight with Linda Lecca.
Linda's coming off of 2 back-to-back losses.
But even with that, she's still a more experienced fighter, a far more experienced professional boxer than Skye Nicholson.
She can give her something to have to work around.
Shirley is a veteran of 27 professional bouts, 27 professional contests, sporting a professional record of 15 wins with 6 losses, 2 draws,
3 knockouts.
Skye's unblemished record of just 6 professional contests, 6 professional bouts, no losses and no draws.
If nothing else, you can see that Linda Lecca's got more pro experience, more rounds in the bank than Skye Nicholson, and that's the kind of fighter that she needs to be fighting right now, an experienced fighter. They need to mitigate the risks,
while simultaneously allowing her to develop. Linda Lecca is coming off a unanimous decision loss to Chile's own Daniela Asenjo and a more recent loss to Raven Chapman.
She's only won 2 of her last 6 fights.
This is an opportunity for Skye Nicholson to work on being a more aggressive fighter, a more spiteful fighter, spiteful puncher. They didn't land on Linda Lecca by accident. I anticipate that we're going to see Skye Nicholson step into her jab for this fight.
Bring over some backhands.
Try to push the pace and press the issue. Linda Lecca is a characteristic back foot lateral movement kind of fighter. The kind of fighter that's looking to work off the counter, catch an opponent coming in. But because I anticipate that Linda's a bit slower than Skye.
Shorter and stumpier too.
She's going to come up short with those counter shots. Skye Nicholson has very generous physical dimensions for the featherweight division. Good height, good reach.
Good legs.
I figure the reason that Skye Nicholson's handlers decided to put her in there with Linda Lecca in her very next fight is because it would allow Skye to be the aggressor for a change. Be the fighter coming forward.
In a safe environment, in a controlled one.
Linda Lecca's not a big puncher.
27 professional bouts, she's only got 3 knockouts.
Linda Lecca's not a big puncher. She's also not as athletic as Skye Nicholson.
Skye will have that working for her. She's more athletic, more nimble, and a little bit faster, a little bit quicker, albeit not as experienced.
That's a skinny. I don't anticipate that this fight is going to end in a knockout because neither Linda Lecca or Skye Nicholson is a knockout merchant. Moreover, even if you favor Skye Nicholson to win this fight and win this fight on points,
Linda Lecca's a stubborn customer. In 27 professional bouts, she's only ever been stopped once.
More recently in action opposite the ring, Raven Chapman, who's a far more offensively minded fighter than Skye Nicholson, a devastating combination puncher, a fast one, an overwhelming one. And in spite of Raven dominating Linda Lecca, Raven wasn't able to knock her out, so I hardly think that Skye...
Yeah, Skye's not knocking her out.
She's not knocking out Linda Lecca. Linda Lecca is a stubborn customer. In all likelihood, Skye can win a points decision, but she won't stop Linda.
This is Skye's bid to show a little bit more aggression, a little bit more spite.
What it is. And if a fighter who's more aggressive, naturally more aggressive than Skye. If she couldn't get Linda Lecca out of there, Skye's not getting her out of there.
Nah.
Skye Nicholson on points is the way to go. Skye Nicholson, who's already seen action once earlier this year opposite the ring, then unbeaten to Nia Alvarez. This will be her second fight of this year, given that it's going down in April.
If she wins, that leaves plenty of room for a third and a fourth.
3 or 4 fights this year. Skye Nicholson debuted as a professional last year and managed to get 5 fights in. For an unbeaten up-and-comer, that's what you want. You want a busy schedule, an active one. The more rounds she banks, the better. It's what she needs. Skye Nicholson on points is the logical way to go. Men's light heavyweight news. Eddie Hearn reveals more and more likely that Bivol bypasses a June fight date and just goes straight into negotiations for a rematch with Canelo.
That sucks. This is a byproduct of both Dimitri Bivol and Artur Beterbiev, respectively, cleaning out most of the light heavyweight division. That's what this is. They haven't left each other with a lot of alternatives. Alternatives to fighting each other. The window of opportunity is rapidly closing for Dimitri Bivol to land a stay-busy fight ahead of a lucrative rematch with the sport's biggest star. Talks are ongoing, but looking grim to secure a targeted June 17th fight date for a voluntary title defense of his WBA title. Bivol, who is co-promoted by Matchroom Boxing and World of Boxing, aimed to get at least one more fight, but could instead wait out the May 6th Seoul Canelo Alvarez versus John Ryder undisputed super middleweight championship before finalizing his next move. It's looking more and more that way, Matchroom chairman Eddie Hearn told BoxingScene.com. He may wait and just negotiate the September rematch with Seoul and just take it from there. That's assuming the people over there at World of Boxing, a Russian-based promotional outfit, don't decide to keep him busy in their neck of the woods. Though the problem with that scenario, the problem with that is the crisis between Russia and Ukraine, and the alphabet organizations taking a stance on that. Would the WBA sanction a fight between Dimitri Bivol and another Russian national in Russia if the people at World of Boxing find him an opponent, find him someone to keep busy with? Because they can. They stage a lot of cards over there in Russia, unbeknownst to most, unbeknownst to the people in the West. World of Boxing is a very capable, well-to-do promotional outfit in Russia. The problem is they're based out of Russia. Everybody knows what's going on right now. Canelo Alvarez still has to turn away England's John Ryder, the interim WBO super middleweight titleist who's traveled to Alvarez's home state of Jalisco for their title consolidation bout. From there, the marching orders have been clear. My instructions from Eddie Reynoso, Alvarez's longtime trainer and manager, and Saul are to make the Bivol fight, noted Hearn. So, fingers crossed. You guys already know how I feel about that rematch. It's not necessary. And what we're looking at now in the men's light heavyweight division is Dimitri and Artur, the both of them respectively, in their own way, they've helped to clean up the light heavyweight division. Artur Beterbiev, he's shared the ring with Callum Johnson, Alexander Volzdik, Marcus Brown, more recently, Anthony Yard, while Dimitri's shared the ring with John Pascal and Joe Smith Jr. They've both fought Joe Smith Jr. Both Artur and Dimitri. Dimitri more recently shared the ring with then unbeaten Zerto Ramirez. Dished out Canelo Alvarez, a very high-profile loss. There's not a lot left to do for these guys at light heavyweight. There's not much left to do but for them to take each other on. They really are the last two men standing, the last two champions. Artur's got a mandatory challenger in Callum Smith to satisfy, and that's a decent fight, but you're telling me that can't wait? You're telling me that shouldn't go on the back burner for a Bivol fight? Boxing's got to get out of its own way because this really is the best fight to make in the men's light heavyweight division. In many ways, it's the only fight to make. Vadim Kornilov, who helps to handle the career of Dimitri Bivol, he made some mention of a potential Munguia fight, but I don't expect that to materialize. Moreover, he made some mention that the kind of money it would take to satisfy both teams, it's not there, and that's unfortunate. This fight, because of that, seems like the ideal fight to take to the Middle East. The ideal fight to stage as part of Matchroom's Champions Series. Kicked off last year in that region of the world, a joint effort between Matchroom and the travel and tourism people over there in that part of the world to bring big-time boxing. Bring big-time boxing to that region of the world. This fight seems like the ideal fight to take over there because two Russians in America, talented as they might be, that doesn't really sell. That doesn't really sell in the UK either. But it really is the best fight to make. It's a fight that I've no doubts would not disappoint. Hard to imagine, hard to deal with as a consumer, as a boxing fan, that we're only one fight away, just one fight away from crowning an undisputed light heavyweight champion. When's the last time we saw one of those? Yeesh. Just one fight away from that, and for whatever reason, the fight is not happening. The fight that in all actuality
makes the most sense. Makes the most sense for Dimitri. Definitely makes the most sense for Artur because he's not getting any younger.
But it's not happening. It's not going down. And even worse, they can't even find Dimitri somebody to keep busy with.
This guy's not set to return to action till what, 9 months into this year? Time wasted.
Squandered.
If he don't return in June and doesn't come back till September, it just is what it is. Boxing
Won't get out of its own way sometimes.
the best fight to make it light heavyweight. It's not happening.
And that sucks.
Men's middleweight division, more evidence of boxing getting in its own way. Jermall Charlo has the full support of the WBC, says Mauricio Suleiman.
Why?
Brown paper bag money, that's why.
Yep.
World Boxing Council President Mauricio Suleiman has expressed his full support of the organization's middleweight world champion, Jermall Charlo. Charlo is nearing a 2-year stint of inactivity after being out of the ring for 21 months and counting. While some have called for Charlo's removal from the title position, Suleiman makes it clear that the WBC will continue to recognize Charlo as its middleweight world champion.
There's no reason to do so in the sporting sense of things, because this isn't good for the division.
The WBC world title has been out of circulation for 21 months. That means that for 21 months, nobody has had the opportunity to fight for it. Not even your WBC interim champion, Carlos Adames, who late last year attended the WBC's annual convention, petitioning for them to order the fight with Charlo, and they rejected his petition.
And for what? So that Jermall Charlo could continue to hold that title hostage, keeping it out of circulation well into the following year?
How is that good for the middleweight division? How is that good for boxing? It isn't. Suleiman met with Jermall Charlo during last month's super middleweight clash between David Benavidez and Caleb Plant in Las Vegas. It was a wonderful meeting. Very nice, Suleiman told Izquierdazo. He has been through complicated personal issues. He thanked the WBC for the support that we have given to him. Asked to elaborate if the WBC will keep Charlo as its champion, despite the backlash regarding his inactivity, Suleiman was reluctant to provide a concrete answer, but suggested that such will be the case. He is our champion, and he is coming forward.
This is what's wrong with boxing. This is how boxing refuses to get out of its own way. Any other sport.
Every other sport, every other organized sport, if the athlete, if the participant is unable to participate, they don't get to retain their status.
Fuck every other organized sport, every other profession, every other job. If you are unable to do the job, you don't get to keep it.
This ain't a charity. You say that this guy's going through stuff. What's he going through? He's got some issues outside of the ring. Everybody's got them.
Everybody's still got a job to do. That includes him.
Jermall Charlo's last fight was on June 19th of 2021 when he scored a unanimous decision victory over Juan Macias Montiel, and he looked very human doing it.
This guy is not bringing excitement to the sport of boxing with the fights that he has been having since having moved up to the men's middleweight division. He's not creating excitement, not generating buzz, not bringing unification matches to the weight.
He's been there since 2017. That's back when he was fighting. Close to 2 years later, he's not fighting. He's still got a belt.
Can you believe that Jermall Charlo's been campaigning as a middleweight for approximately 6 years?
And in the last 2, the man hasn't even fought.
And you mean to tell me that the WBC's gonna keep letting him hang on to that title? Why?
Brown paper bag money. That's why. That's the advantage I have here on this channel that some members of the media don't have. I can call a spade a spade. I can tell you what it is. These guys are being paid.
They're being bribed.
Every single one of those guys in the WBC's rank standings is paying this organization sanctioning fees in order to achieve a rank, just so that they never get the chance to fight for the WBC title.
They might as well not pay them.
Carlos Adames, he might as well chuck that WBC interim title in the air and go his own way with a different organization, because the WBC is doing nothing,
Zippo.
absolutely nothing, to ensure that he gets the title shot that he deserves.
They're not going to order the fight between him and Jermall.
But they're not going to stop charging Carlos Adames sanctioning fees either in order for him to hang on to that WBC interim title. But if hanging on to that title doesn't get you an immediate shot at Jermall, then what the hell is it good for?
Not a lot.
He's still at the WBC's mercy, and they're not giving any time frame at all as to when that fight between Carlos and Jermall is supposed to go down. When is it going to get ordered? Showtime head Stefan Espinoza last month floated the idea of Charlo versus Adames happening before the end of this year, though given how much time Jermall has spent away from the ring, it shouldn't be an idea that gets floated. It shouldn't be a matter of speculation. This is a sport, isn't it?
No, what the boxing industry's insiders will tell you without fail is that it's a business.
Okay then, Mr. Business Guy, you tell me how this is good for business. How has all of this been good for the middleweight division? How has all of this been good for boxing?
What's the good part?
I do expect Charlo to return, whether it's June or early July. I think somewhere in there makes sense, Espinoza said on the Boxing with Chris Mannix podcast. We're close to finalizing the fight, being completed. Candid, he has been out for 2 years. He had an injury and some personal issues to be sorted out. He's anxious to get back to the ring, I think. Being completely candid, 160 isn't the deepest division. There's very good talent at the top, but there's a gap once you get past the top names. I don't think it's fair to ask him, coming off of an injury and time off, to take on the toughest opponent at the top of the list. It's clearly not going to be Adames or someone like that, but I think it'll be a credible fight, and I'd look to see a meaningful fight.
Do you hear that? Stefan Espinoza himself is basically admitting that Jermall Charlo's not going to fight Carlos Adames anytime soon.
Because he doesn't think it's fair. But you tell me how fair it is to Carlos Adames.
He's the WBC's interim champion, isn't he? What's the purpose in having that belt if it don't get you Jermall Charlo?
Don't the WBC take a percentage out of that guy's price in order for him to hold on that belt? And isn't he holding on to that belt because he feels it'll get him Jermall?
So tell me again about fairness. How fair is any of this to him?
I don't think it's fair to ask him, coming off an injury and time off, to take on the toughest opponent at the top of the list. It's clearly not going to be Adames or anyone like that. But I think it'll be a credible fight, and I'd look to see a meaningful fight. Maybe Adames or something like that as the next fight before the end of the year, if he even fights again before the end of the year, assuming he fights at all.
They say he's supposed to be coming back in June, which is a little over 2 months away, but no official announcement has been made.
You have to think about it. Josh Taylor, last year in July, ended up vacating the WBC title under pressure from the WBC for him to satisfy his mandatory challenger, Jose Zepeda. They were Johnny on the spot to order that fight. Why weren't they so Johnny on the spot to order this one?
Because they're being bribed.
That's the short answer. They are being given cash incentives to allow Jermall to keep the belt.
And to hold off from ordering that fight.
Not even angry that they ordered that fight last year between Josh Taylor and Jose Zepeda. That's one of the few instances where the WBC was actually doing their job. I don't take issue with them ordering a fight. I take issue with them not ordering a fight.
Not ordering this one. You wonder why the middleweight division, what is historically one of the glamour weights, why all of its sizzle
is fizzled out. Why isn't this the hot weight class, the hot division that it was in 2016 and 2017, 2018? What happened?
This is a part of it.
Jermall Charlo, the WBC, two of several contributing factors that have led to an abysmal middleweight division that ain't what it used to be.
It ain't good for boxing.
I don't want to hear about Jermall Charlo's injury personally. And if personal problems and injuries are a part of it, that's all the more reason to have labeled him a champion in recess.
You should have done that a long time ago. And now, what are we looking at? A June return? Late June? Early July?
This is good for boxing? No, it's not good for boxing. It's not good for the boxers. Not good for the middleweight division. The only ones this is good for is the WBC because they're being bribed.
How else can you explain it?
Why else would they be letting him hang on to that WBC title that he hasn't defended in close to 2 years?
They're being bribed.
They've got one job in the sport, and they're not doing it.
Because they're being bribed not to.